Hello everybody, I'm Troy Andrews. Thanks for joining me out here today on beautiful Old Hickory Lake. Been doing some fishing out here today and I got to thinking, I was going through my hook box here and you can see I've got quite a bit of hooks, as you can see, and I well organized my hooks, and I think it's very important in your fishing. It's good to have plenty of assortment of hooks and weights to be able to do and take care of the situation that you have to have. I've picked out just a few hooks that I think that I use most of, and I think that would help you. I know back when I first started fishing, many years ago when I was a kid, I'm still a kid, but you know what I'm saying, I would go to a bait store or something, I would look down the hook aisle and I'd be like, man, which hook do I use for this bait right here? And most hooks you can use, pretty universal, but there's certain hooks like you wouldn't want to use a hook that you would use for this one, for this little guy right here, because the hook that you would use for this one would be just too big for that. So I'm going to kind of break it down for you today. I'm going to start out small. I'm going to start out with the little guy. This right here is called a drop shot hook. That's made by VMC, and it's called a spin shot. And what this does, your main line comes down to this swivel right here, and then you tie your leader, which goes down however deep you want to go with it. Usually 1 foot to 4 feet, depends on how high you want to put this bait off the bottom. But you see this hook will spin around. It'll spin around that right there. It'll keep the bait straight out for one thing, and plus it'll rotate and keep line twist from happening. So that is a spin shot hook. That's a number one hook. Real good hook for drop shotting. Baits that I want to use for this hook will be the smaller baits, such as this little finesse worm. That's about a 4.5 inch finesse worm. And the way I want to do that is simply nose hook it, just through the nose, just like that right there. And it's going to stay out just like that in the water when you're drop shotting. That's the best way to rig that right there. If you're getting into a lot of cover and you want to drop shot down into some cover, you can go ahead and Texas rig it the same way. Just put it through the nose, bring it right out, turn it around, and you can put the hook point right back up in that bait, just like this right here, and you can Texas rig it just like that where it's a little bit weedless. So that is the VMC spin shot hook, okay? And that's good, like I said, for smaller baits. You wouldn't really want to use this hook right here for a bait that big. It's just too much bait, and you're probably not going to hook the fish. So finesse, that's the way you want to go with. Now I'm going to go up to an actual wide gap finesse hook right here that's also made by VMC. It's a 1/0. And it's good also for baits if you want to do a little Texas rigging on baits and put this on use like a 1/8 ounce weight on that, and you just simply rig it Texas style, bring it through the front, run it back up, and then bring it back through the body to keep it really straight. And you can see that hook is still not too big for that little worm. The bigger hook that you can get by with, especially on your bigger fish, if you think of a bass's mouth, how big it is, you want as much hook in there as you possibly can, but with these little baits, you just can't put bigger hooks. So just small finesse presentations for a bigger hook, you want to go with that one right there. That's a 1/0 wide gap hook. All right, I'm going to advance on to a little bit bigger hook here. This is a worm hook. Now you can see that's probably 2.5 to 3 inches long, but if you get a big worm like this, again, that would be too big for that little bitty bait right there. So when you're doing your bigger worms for your bigger bass, if you can see that hook comes on back there some, to where when the fish grabs a hold of this, he's got a better chance of hooking that. And then if you notice your other wide gap hooks, you can notice the difference in these. This one right here is a VMC 5/0 wide gap. It's made more for your bigger baits. Now, on your worm fishing, you want a slender hook because the worm, it's not that thick. It's real slender, as you can see there, which makes this a better hook for that bait right there. As you can see, it's a little bit more slender. Also, it lets the fish not get a good look at that hook because it conforms more to the body of this bait. So a longer worm, you want a longer shank hook, and that is a VMC 5/0 worm hook right there. All right. The next hook I want to talk about here is this is a 3/0 wide gap hook. It's good for baits such as tubes. And one of the reasons I do that, if you're fishing a tube like this Vertical Tube X, it's a little bit more bulky. So you want a little bit more wide gap, and see, that fits that bait just perfect. And of course the way you rig it is the same way you do a worm. Put it back through here, I want to rig these to show you guys that see that's rigged perfectly straight, and that gap on there lets that bass actually cramp down on that lure, and it'll actually mash down. There's a little bit of area there for that to give so you can get a better hook set. But as you can see, that does that bait justice right there. You know, it's not too slim, but it's not too bulky either. So that's a basic wide gap hook. That's what I fish these tubes on. Okay? All right, I'm going to go up to a little bit something bigger. I mentioned this big 5/0 wide gap hook. I flip and pitch with this hook. It's real hard steel and it's not going to bend any. Now, this bait is good for like this Vertical Lures Creature X. See, it's got some flappy arms on it. It's more bulky. And see, the more bulky the bait is, the more wide gap that you want in a hook to compensate for all that. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and rig this up here for this creature bait. Because all these arms and all these flappers and appendages on these creature baits, sometimes they'll get in the way. See how that goes down in that gap there? These little arms are flapped open like that. But when that bass, again, when it bites down, it's going to compensate for all that bulk on that bait. So that is a good choice hook for that big bulky bait right there. And that's the Creature X by TubeX Vertical Lures. Okay. All right. The next one. And if you can see this hook right here, again, it's a wide gap hook, but you can see it's got a screw lock on there. That is a swim bait hook. It can also be used for a frog hook. Okay. And I'm going to rig both of those to show you. I'm going to start out with a frog. That's a Zoom frog. It's good. You can buzz it across the water surface. And the way you do that, you take the nose of that bait, put it up on this spring, thread it down on there, and that also holds the bait really well. And you can see it swings freely on there. All right. Once you get that on there, you bring it back through the body of the bait, through the back, and then lay it right in the top, and you can see now that lure is completely straight. So that holds that on there. You'll be able to throw that through stuff like this grass behind me, buzz it across the surface. So that is a good choice for that Zoom frog right there, as you can see. Now also, a lot of your swim baits take the same type hook. Again, you want to take just a regular worm hook and put in this large swim bait right here. See, when I do that, when I put it down there, you can't even hardly see the hook. And when a fish bites down on that, all he's got is plastic, and you're not going to get good of a hook set. But when you take and rig it on this swim bait hook, which I'm going to do the same way as I did the frog, just thread it down on there, and you do the same thing. So you've got that wide gap that's going to come back through the body of this swim bait, hook it right through the top, and as you can see there, that's how you want to rig your swim baits. It's a bigger body swim bait, so you want to compensate for that hook set. When the bass comes up and gets it, he's going to bite down on that and get a better hook set. The last one that I want to show you is this straight shank hook right there. And if you can see, it's got a little barb on the back of it right there. And that is your actual lure keeper. This is called a flipping hook. And you can do baits like the TubeX. If you want to use a flipping hook straight shank, you can get better hook sets with these than you can your normal wide gap hooks, because they're straight. There's no shank in the way. And the way you do this is just force it through the front there, and as you can see, that little keeper right there holds that bait on there just like that right there. Take and just bring it back through just like that, and there's your straight shank flipping hook rigged on a tube. So that's just your basic hooks that I use, and different hooks do fit different situations. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you to your hook selection. And I also ask you to go visit my website for more blogs, more tips and techniques. It's www.troyandrewsfishing.com. Thanks for joining me, and God bless.